Hello everyone, friends. Today Jan and I are sitting on the terrace. We're having an interesting discussion together, and we decided to record it for you. We were deeply discussing a wide range of topics like money, financial abundance, and the many fears associated with them, along with the anxieties and various psychological complexes that often torment people, creating significant barriers that hold them back from achieving their true potential in life, from living the life they would like to live. They can allow themselves certain benefits.
Is abundance always about money?
Of course not. Abundance isn't about money at all, I would say. Money can't be some kind of goal, you know? Money is a means. And this means always comes in service of a goal. So the main task for a person and the main problem, yes, and the mistake many people make is that they want money. Although, if you look at it this way, many of them don't even know what they would do with it. They're not ready to accept the amount they've been dreaming about. You see? So if a person who isn't used to handling large sums suddenly receives a large sum, and there are many such cases in history, people win the lottery, for example, and they blow through it all very quickly in a completely senseless way. You see, because they don't have the skills, they don't have the programs that would allow them to manage it wisely, to preserve and multiply it, yes, and in general, to make it work for their benefit. That's why you have to start with the basics here. Everything begins. Let's say, from the environment in which a person grew up, received their upbringing, acquired their first skills, yes, and learned about this and that. And these programs ultimately determine a person's outcomes. It's also about various mental blocks. We already come here with a certain baggage, whether we know it or not, but it's already imprinted in our subtle bodies. Such a factor as karma. There is ancestral karma and there is personal karma. When we talk about ancestral karma, we mean the dramas, tragedies, and various situations that happened to our ancestors. We personally may not have participated in this, although it also happens that people are born into their own family line and go through the same experiences within the family. But even if they weren't born into such situations, the information contained in the ancestral lineage can be passed on to a person as ancestral karma and influence their life in this incarnation. Limit and create various vicious cycles where a person simply cannot make a different decision because they are completely, let's say, dependent on that informational vibration that is already inside them, which forms fear. For example, if we talk about abundance, this is a very common story. Take, for instance, the dekolokization in Russia. This wasn't that long ago, everyone knows about it. That is when people worked and achieved something. They had a certain level of well-being, and then the government changed, and overnight, they lost everything. Many even lost their lives or lost loved ones. Naturally for them, when this drama was unfolding, it became ingrained that if you have a certain level of well-being, then it's dangerous. You could lose it, you could lose your loved ones, you could lose your life. So naturally, it created fears. Sometimes a person feels fear about money, for example, the fear of poverty, that they will be left without money. It seems like everything is fine, they're a good specialist, and in general, they earn well. But they sit there afraid to spend this money, they just save it up or something like that. Cases like this do happen. That's exactly where ancestral karma can be at play, causing fear. This feeling that sooner or later it could all come to an end. They feel the need to save somewhere, to hide something somewhere, to do something somehow. And essentially, even though the person earns well and is successful, they don't feel satisfied and can't enjoy all their benefits, all their abundance, or take pleasure in it. That is why things like blocks, various karmic issues, and all sorts of limitations need to be worked through in a very specific and intentional way. When these are worked through, a person can break free from this negative program and start building their life differently.
And how exactly do you work through them?
There are a lot of methods. And over the course of human history, many different traditions and methods have accumulated. People, through empirical means, developed various methods for working through these blocks, for removing them, for getting out of these negative programs. So everyone chooses what resonates with them, or what is easier for them to do, or what suits them, whatever works best for them. Like we recently held a workshop on family lineage. We had quite a large number of people who were working specifically with these ancestral programs, including those related to money and abundance. There, I offer certain techniques and keys for how to work with them. And the feedback was very positive. So let's say we connected to the ancestral system in a certain way. As a facilitator, I enabled people to see the ancestral system. And if we look at these kind of blocks, for example, if they chose to work through blocks related to abundance or problems with money and so on, they would see certain points on this family tree, on the ancestral line, where there were issues. In other words, they could see where certain limitations, whether karmic or ancestral, might be coming from. And I gave them a specific technique that they could use to heal it. And there was a very strong response. Everyone really liked it because it truly was very powerful work. So, for example, this is one possible approach, connecting to the ancestral system through some kind of guide and working through it using various methods that a particular practitioner possesses, like that. By the way, this course of ours, just so you know, friends, will be available as a recording. It turned out to be very powerful. Moreover, all course participants get the opportunity. I specifically organize a puja in India for their deceased relatives. This is a very powerful puja that allows you to remove various karmic layers for your departed relatives. First of all, it will help them with a better transition, a better path ahead, and accordingly for the entire family line as well. So this is a kind of karma cleansing. Indians have such methods and they are very powerful. Their hereditary Brahmins from Rishikesh, a sacred city in India, perform it for us. And all those people who will come to take this course, even in the recorded version, I will also, upon request, if there is a request. We have a lot of requests. Even during the first puja, not everyone could fit in. That's why we will organize another one in October on the 5th. Oh, on the 3rd. There will be one on the new moon. These pujas are performed. It's called Pitru Puja for the departed. We will also order another puja and there will be a live broadcast. We were all simply delighted, of course, with this work. It is, of course, very beautiful when on the banks of the Ganges, the Brahmins perform a ritual for your relatives. I also suggested for many religious people around the world, there is a very unique and deeply interesting Christian ritual that is commonly known as parastas. It also allows you to pray for your relatives and remove ancestral karma. This work, of course, is also being done in our group. Naturally, it's much more powerful there. The energies were very strong. Everyone had amazing instant results. There were such interesting processes going on. But you can also do this in our group if you wish, or you can do it individually.
In which group?
In the ancestral group. If anyone decides to work with their lineage in this course, it may be available as a recording. So we will also be creating groups that will go through the Parastas ritual. I will be consulting them. Anyone who wants to go through this ritual, there is also this opportunity available for you individually. I have this ritual very clearly described, how to perform it, what you will need for it, and it is publicly accessible. It is available on my channel, The Fifth Element, and also in the Telegram Daria Logvinova. I have posted it there as well. That is, I have uploaded all the necessary materials for it there, and I have described the ritual itself in great detail. If you wish, you can also go through it on your own. You will find it on our Telegram. So these are some of the options, yes. Naturally, this can influence the area of finances, relationships, and health. First and foremost, yes. Because when there is no health, as we all know, you don't care about money or anything else, nothing matters. That's why the most important thing above all is for you to be healthy, both physically and mentally.
There are many stories where, for example, a wealthy billionaire is born into an incredibly poor family. It is very much like the famous movie Slumdog Millionaire. He lived in completely inhuman and harsh conditions, yet he eventually became a natural and brilliant talent. So, what does that mean? Are family patterns not affecting him?
Well, look, I didn't say for nothing right away that when we come here into this incarnation, we immediately receive two karmas. We have two karmas. One is family karma, and the second is our personal karma. These are the incarnations of our soul that took place on earth or in similar worlds before this incarnation. Naturally, we have already accumulated a certain amount of baggage, and personal karma can be so good in this sense, in terms of wealth or money. Let's say the person he accumulated good karma for himself, he helped many other people, for example, in past lives. He might have been a scientist who developed certain methods and improved the lives of others. Naturally, for such people, this karma can outweigh their family karma. And perhaps this boy as well somehow ended up in this family line, now in some poor family, but that doesn't mean his entire lineage was poor. Maybe it's just one generation for one reason or another. Perhaps there were some cataclysms in the country. Again, his parents had their own personal karma, so they went down that path. But this karma, he completely transformed and transmuted it with his own virtue, with the profound purity of his inner perception and of his own consciousness. And he eventually returned once again to those boundaries, back to his very own level, which, let's say, was graciously bestowed upon him by the laws of karma. Everything is conditional, nothing happens by chance. That is, as I always say, it's very important to understand this. Many people make the mistake of immediately starting to look for problems. They say it's the family's fault, it's this person's fault, it's everyone's fault. Someone is always to blame, either the government or the times we live in. Friends, just look, we all live in the same times. And among us, there are many poor people, many rich people, many happy and many unhappy people, completely different kinds of people, with absolutely different lives, all at the same time. That is, even during some kind of decline or difficult periods in any given country, there are always people who, on the contrary, use it as an opportunity and reach a high level of prosperity. This tells us that everything is determined by your personal choices. In other words, you are responsible for what you have right now. And where you are right now, you are there only because of the choices you made in this life and the choices you made in your past life. And even your family line, if you ask, but what about family, right? We choose our family as well. That is, before the soul comes here to earth, before it incarnates, we choose our parents, we choose where to be born, when, at what time, in what environment, so that the soul can go through its personal karma. Sometimes the soul even chooses a similar karma within the family line to intensify or worsen it, so that the focus is on this karma, so there is motivation to work through it more quickly in one way or another. Karma can be also resolved simply through awareness. That's why when a person becomes enlightened, they instantly free themselves from all karma because their consciousness grows so much and they become aware of everything. All these lessons are completed at once and everything becomes clear to them. Therefore, it is also very important to constantly work on oneself in terms of raising one's vibrations and increasing the level of consciousness and understanding of what is happening. The first step on this path is to take responsibility for your own life into your own hands. This is what I call a threshold. It is a very important threshold. Until you cross it, it will be very difficult to move forward. To move forward easily. Therefore, in order to move forward easily, you need to cross this threshold, take responsibility for yourself, and realize that it is truly your choice.
Not to place it on higher powers or on some kind of games.
Absolutely not.
It means that I am the creator of my own life.
Well, then I am also responsible for where I am. If you were able to create everything you have now, even if you don't like it, that's always a good sign. It means you can also create what you do like. You just need to understand the rules of the game a little, how everything works, and how to achieve what you want. But one of the stages, as I said, is about working through those blocks and karma, understanding how it all happens, and trying to work through your ancestral structures as much as possible to become aware of them, and in some way also work through your own karmic component, and of course take responsibility into your own hands.
I've heard a saying like, if you're not destined to be rich according to your karma, you won't be. How do you feel about this statement?
Well, this kind of fatalism, let's say, does exist. Well, as I see it, for example. Basically, however a person decides for themselves, that's how it will be, because only they decide that for themselves. If you say that only karma determines your life, then that's how it will be. But if you say, wait, let's figure this out. Okay, karma has an influence. So for example, as I see it, if we're talking about fate, that everything is predetermined, everything is written out, in some sense, that's true. And why is that true? Because let's say we have many possible versions of our reality. There is some dominant line that each of us is currently on. How we ended up on it, that's another question. But it exists. And on this dominant line, everything is written out. All the scenarios, all the events, all the settings. You see? And on this dominant line that you are currently on, nothing can be changed. In a sense, that's why it's true here. But there's good news. You can choose another one, which has completely different events, settings, and so on. You see?
But how is that possible?
To do that, there are some very interesting techniques that make it possible to do this. In fact, you need to understand what the rules are, and there are methods that allow you to do it. But first, you just need to become aware of it. When a person already allows this thought, that's already the first step. You see? Because if a person is already stuck in this fatalism that everything is predetermined and that's it, nothing else will happen. So I messed things up, and now I'll be stuck there forever.
Nothing ever gets fixed.
But that's a slightly different topic. That's actually the thing we were talking about earlier. As a rule, it always comes from the family. That is, from the environment in which a person grew up. Here, you need to fundamentally understand how our world is structured, and to understand this multiplicity of possibilities. And there are absolutely clear rules for how to move from one timeline to another. I always talk about this in my first level course. We put a big emphasis on it in the course. I give clear techniques, transmissions, and so on. It was only just yesterday that we successfully completed the very first level of the program, and several more groups of people were finally able to receive this knowledge.